Every file holds a story too dark to forget.
From the corners of forgotten streets to the whispers of history's darkest minds.
Tonight, we open one of the world's most terrifying unsolved mysteries. They called him Jack the Ripper. To the Dark Case Files.
The following story is based on real case files and historical evidence. Viewer discretion is advised.
Imagine London in the late 19th century. The year is 1888, a city wrapped in fog and whispers of fear. In the East End lay Whitechapel, a place drowning in poverty, overcrowding, and despair. Narrow, dimly lit streets twisted through filth and fog, where misery walked beside the desperate. Thousands lived here, immigrants, the poor, the forgotten, surviving one hopeless night at a time. In this forgotten corner of London, something darker than poverty began to stir. By late summer of 1888, whispers spread. Someone was hunting the women of Whitechapel. A killer moved through the shadows, silent, merciless, and unseen. Soon the world would know his name, the name that would echo through history. Jack the Ripper. The terror began with Marianne Nichols, known to many as Polly. On the cold night of August 31st, 1888, she searched for enough money to buy a bed for the night. Just hours later, in the shadows of Bucks Row, she would meet her killer. Her throat was slashed nearly to the bone, her body mutilated with chilling precision. Even London's toughest officers were stunned. The brutality was beyond anything they'd seen. Only a week later, another victim was found, Annie Chapman, in the yard of 29 Hanbury Street. Her organs were missing. The killer knew anatomy. Perhaps a butcher or a surgeon. This was no madman. This was a methodical killer. London trembled. There was a monster among them. The press pounced on the gruesome details, and soon Jack the Ripper became the city's obsession. Headlines screamed of horror in Whitechapel. Fear spread through London like wildfire. The poor huddled together for safety, while men took to the streets hunting the unseen killer. But Jack was like smoke, impossible to grasp, impossible to catch. Then came the night of September 30th, 1888, what history would call the double event. Elizabeth Stride was found in Dutfield's yard, her throat cut but the body untouched, as if the killer had been interrupted. 2 murders in under an hour, a display of arrogance and evil. Panic turned to hysteria, and Jack vanished into the fog once more. The police were desperate and humiliated. The hunt for the killer had become a war in the fog. Both the Metropolitan Police and the City of London Police launched massive investigations. Scotland Yard sent its best men. Hundreds were questioned, leads chased, rumors pursued. Yet the killer stayed one step ahead, always watching. Then came something darker. Letters. Dozens of them, written in red ink, some even carrying pieces of human flesh. One began with the taunting words, "Dear Boss," signed with a name that would haunt history, Jack the Ripper. The Ripper mocked everyone, the police, the press, the people. He fed on fear and fame alike. Each killing became a headline, each letter a performance. Murder turned into public spectacle. London had never faced a killer like him, one who didn't just kill. He communicated, controlled, and conquered fear itself. The nightmare reached its terrible climax on November 9th, 1888, inside a quiet room at Miller's Court. Greater than Mary Jane Kelly, the youngest of the Ripper's victims, was alone that night, unaware that death was at her door. What happened next was beyond comprehension, a storm of violence behind closed doors. When police entered her room, they found a scene that would haunt them for life. Kelly's body had been mutilated beyond recognition, her face destroyed, her remains scattered across the bed. This was the Ripper's final act, a grotesque masterpiece of cruelty. And then the killings stopped. By winter's end, 5 women, forgotten by society, became immortal symbols of fear and tragedy. Jack the Ripper vanished, but his name became eternal, a ghost in the fog, a reminder that evil can wear a human face.
This file is closed, but some questions will never be answered.
The murders had ended, but the hunt had just begun.
The following story is based on real case files and historical evidence. Viewer discretion is advised.
As the body count rose in Whitechapel, fear spread through London's dark heart. The city trembled under the shadow of an unseen killer. Scotland Yard's finest were called in, led by Detective Inspector Frederick Aberline, a man of sharp instinct and quiet resolve. But even Aberline soon realized this was no ordinary case. Whitechapel was a labyrinth, every alley a secret, every face a suspect. The police questioned everyone, desperate workers, beggars, and strangers in the night, yet the answers only deepened the mystery. Witnesses spoke of a man in a dark coat, another in a hat, a foreign-looking gentleman. Shadows without names. They turned to evidence, blood on brick, torn clothing, and silence. The only clues the Ripper ever left behind. But in 1888, science was powerless. No fingerprints, no DNA, no technology to catch a ghost in human form. All they had were bloodstains, mutilated bodies, and fear. For the first time, Scotland Yard realized they were hunting a killer beyond imagination. While the police struggled, the East End filled the silence with whispers, stories of a phantom stalking the night. Some said he was a butcher, a man used to blood, whose trade masked the horror of his crimes. Others whispered of a doctor or a student of anatomy, someone who knew the body too well. The press seized the rumors, printing every gruesome detail, turning fear into front-page profit. Greater than even London's upper class could not look away, their polished world invaded by the terror of Whitechapel. For the first time, fear crossed every class line. The Ripper's shadow spared no one. What began as local horror became obsession. London devoured every new detail, hungry for dread. Greater than Jack the Ripper had captured an entire city's imagination, turning the streets into a grim theater of death. As panic spread, letters began flooding into police stations and newspaper offices, each claiming to be from the killer himself. Most were dismissed as cruel hoaxes, attention seekers feeding on terror. But one stood out, the now infamous Dear Boss letter, received on September 27, 1888. Written in red ink, it mocked the police, threatened more killings, and ended with a name that would live forever, Jack the Ripper. The name stuck. Instantly legend, splashed across every headline in London. Days later came the Saucy Jackie postcard, boasting of the double event, the murders of Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes. Were these truly his words, or inventions by newspapers hungry for sales and fear? Whoever wrote them, the letters gave the killer a voice, mocking, cruel, and terrifyingly aware of his own fame. With pressure mounting, police turned to the only hope they had: suspects. Dozens of names, each darker than the last. Among the first was Montague John Druitt, a barrister and schoolteacher who ended his own life just after the final murder. Some believed his death explained why the killings suddenly stopped. Then came Aaron Kosminski, a troubled Polish immigrant, later tied, controversially, to DNA from a victim's shawl. Another name surfaced: Michael Ostrog, a Russian doctor and criminal, his violent past enough to make him dangerous, but never guilty. George Chapman, the barber who poisoned his wives, seemed to fit the Ripper's pattern of cruelty all too well. But the most shocking suspect of all, Prince Albert Victor, grandson of Queen Victoria. Some claimed the murders were part of a royal cover-up. Greater than theories multiplied, evidence collapsed. In the end, one truth remained. No one ever knew who Jack the Ripper truly was. As weeks turned into months, the investigation began to crumble beneath its own weight. Every lead led to disappointment. Witnesses contradicted one another. False tips poured in by the hundreds. Detectives tried everything. Patrols increased. Thousands questioned. Even female officers sent out as decoys. But the Ripper never took the bait. Then came the murder of Mary Jane Kelly, the most savage of them all. After that night in November 1888, the killings stopped, as if the killer had vanished into the fog. Some believed he died, others said he was imprisoned or had fled London forever. By year's end, the case was cold. Jack the Ripper had beaten the best of his age, yet his shadow still lingers, eternal, in the heart of London's fog.
This file is closed, but some questions will never be answered.
And just as he appeared from the fog, he vanished into it.
The following story is based on real case files and historical evidence. Viewer discretion is advised.
If the brutal killings of Jack the Ripper terrified Whitechapel, it was the press that made him a worldwide legend. In 1888, newspapers fought a fierce war for readers, and the East End murders were the perfect story, shocking, bloody, and unfolding in real time. Editors quickly realized that horror sold papers. Each killing became a front-page spectacle. Lurid headlines, grotesque illustrations, maps of fear. People crowded around newspaper stalls, reading the reports aloud in pubs, markets, and factories. For the first time, a murderer became a household name. Jack the Ripper's crimes leapt from the alleys of London to the imagination of the entire... From blood-stained streets to global headlines, the legend was born. The newspapers didn't simply report the facts, they dramatized them. Some papers accused Scotland Yard of incompetence. Detectives, blind and helpless in the cartoons, mocked policemen fumbling through dark alleys, while the Ripper slipped away, laughing. The criticism created immense pressure on law enforcement, who lacked even fingerprints or modern forensics. But the press wanted more, not justice, but sensation. Every whisper became a headline, every wild theory. Breaking news. Hysteria spread far beyond Whitechapel. Even the wealthy began to fear that the killer might creep next into their neighborhoods. As stories multiplied, rumors grew darker. Some newspapers suggested the Ripper was a foreigner, fueling xenophobic rage against Jewish and immigrant communities. After one murder, police discovered chilling graffiti, a message that could ignite chaos. Fearing riots, they erased the words, but the press twisted them into a racial accusation. Innocent immigrants were attacked, scapegoated by fear. Others believed the killer was a man of means, a doctor, surgeon, or perhaps someone of the aristocracy. Even Prince Albert Victor, Queen Victoria's grandson, was accused, though no evidence existed. Meanwhile, in Whitechapel, fear ruled. Women refused to walk alone, and men hunted a phantom no one could see. Through relentless press coverage, Jack the Ripper became more than a murderer. He became a myth. The letters signed Jack the Ripper, whether real or hoaxes, gave him a voice, taunting and aware of his fame. Newspapers printed his words in bold red ink, turning murder into theater. For the first time, a killer was created by the media itself. His shadow stretched across oceans. Readers in America followed every killing, fearing it could happen next. Across the Atlantic, his name echoed, a whisper of horror that knew no borders. The Ripper had become the world's first media-made monster, a symbol of evil, shaped not only by his crimes, but by the ink that told his story. By the winter of 1888, London teetered on the edge of panic. Every shadow in the fog, every stranger in the street could be him. The murders, the press, and the fear merged into a storm unlike anything the city had ever known. The press thrived, but the police stood humiliated, chasing a ghost. The killings exposed the class divide, forcing the rich to see the misery they once ignored. But the Ripper's true power lay not in his knife, but in his legend. He had become untouchable, a phantom living on in headlines and nightmares. The killings ended, but Jack the Ripper, born of blood.
This file is closed, but some questions will never be answered.
The city fed on fear, and Jack the Ripper became a legend. Chapter 4.
The following story is based on real case files and historical evidence. Viewer discretion is advised.
By the time Mary Jane Kelly's mutilated body was discovered in November 1888, Jack the Ripper was no longer just a killer. He was a phantom haunting Victorian London. The murders had stopped, but the fear only deepened. London held its breath, haunted by a name no one could catch. With no arrest, no trial, and no closure, the silence left by the investigation was filled by rumor and speculation. Almost immediately, theories multiplied, each more mysterious than the last. Some believed he was a local man, slipping through the twisting streets of Whitechapel, vanishing into the fog before anyone could see his face. Others imagined an outsider, a man from wealth, who came to hunt and retreated back into safety. The idea of a gentleman descending into the slums to kill, then disappearing into privilege, fascinated the public. It played into class tensions, painting the rich as predators and the poor as their prey. One popular theory suggested that the Ripper was a doctor or surgeon, a man of science turned butcher of flesh. The precision of the mutilations, the careful removal of organs, hinted at someone trained in anatomy. Pathologists of the time argued the killer must have known the human body. in ways few others did. The image of a blood-soaked surgeon roaming fog-covered alleys became a legend of fear. But others saw him differently, a butcher or slaughterhouse worker, a man used to knives and the sight of blood. Police interrogated the local tradesmen, men whose work already mirrored the horror of the crimes. Then came the darker theories, whispers that Jack the Ripper was not one man, but many. Some believed the murders were part of a Freemason ritual, a secret society ruling London from the shadows. Perhaps the most infamous theory was the royal conspiracy, accusing Prince Albert Victor, grandson of Queen Victoria, of unspeakable crimes. Some claimed he fathered an illegitimate child with a working-class woman, and that the murders were part of a cover-up to hide the scandal. Though historians dismissed it as fantasy, the story refused to die, feeding books, films, and whispers of conspiracy. As years passed, Jack the Ripper's legend spread far beyond Whitechapel, his shadow crossing oceans and generations. He became the archetype of the faceless serial killer, a phantom who struck without warning and vanished into the mist. His story bled into literature, shaping Gothic tales and birthing the modern age of crime fiction. Writers like Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes, wrote in the same era, haunted by the same darkness. Even in fiction, echoes of the Ripper lingered, turning true horror into eternal legend. The police were desperate and humiliated. The hunt for the killer had become a war in the fog. Both the Metropolitan Police and the City of London Police launched massive investigations. Scotland Yard sent its best men. Hundreds were questioned, leads chased, rumors pursued. Yet the killer stayed one step ahead, always watching. Then came something darker, letters, dozens of them written in red ink, some even carrying pieces of human flesh. One began with the taunting words, "Dear Boss," signed with a name that would haunt history. Jack the Ripper. The Ripper mocked everyone, the police, the press, the people. He fed on fear and fame alike. Each killing became a headline, each letter a performance. Murder turned into public spectacle. London had never faced a killer like him, one who didn't just kill. He communicated, controlled, and conquered fear itself. In the years that followed, Jack the Ripper refused to fade. His story lived on in ink and obsession. Writers claimed to solve the case, while amateurs pored over police files and fading evidence. Theories multiplied, suspects were named and renamed, yet the mystery remained. The Ripper's identity eluded everyone, making it the most famous unsolved murder mystery in history. His shadow stretched beyond crime, inspiring novels, films, and entire genres of fiction. From silent films to modern horror, Jack the Ripper became a cultural ghost, immortal in imagination. By the early 1900s, he was no longer a man, but a myth, a legend blurred between fact and fiction. His fear outlived him, forever stalking the foggy alleys of Whitechapel in the world's collective memory.
This file is closed, but some questions will never be answered.
Then came the letters, taunting the police and mocking the world.
The following story is based on real case files and historical evidence. Viewer discretion is advised.
More than 130 years have passed since Jack the Ripper stalked the streets of Whitechapel, yet his shadow has never faded. Unlike other killers who were caught and judged, the Ripper escaped into the folds of history, leaving behind one of the most enduring mysteries of all time. The unsolved nature of the case gave it a strange immortality, because without an answer, fascination never dies. In the decades that followed the murders, investigators, journalists, and amateur detectives all continued to pursue the truth. Scotland Yard's original case files became some of the most studied documents in criminal history. Over the years, new suspects emerged while old ones were reconsidered, each theory adding another layer to the legend, even as forensic science advanced far beyond the reach of the detectives of 1888. No single theory has ever been universally accepted. Each time the case is reopened, the Ripper seems to slip once more into the fog. In the early 20th century, public interest in the Ripper case surged again, as crime writers and investigators promised to unmask the killer. Among the most prominent suspects was Francis Tumblety, an eccentric American quack doctor who roamed London during the murders. Tumblety was later arrested for gross indecency, and his name forever linked to the shadows of Whitechapel. Others revived the name Aaron Kosminski, a mentally ill Polish immigrant who appeared in police notes from the time. In 2014, a controversial DNA analysis on a shawl linked to victim Catherine Eddowes seemed to tie Kosminski to the crime, but experts quickly criticized the study for flawed methodology and contamination, leaving the debate unresolved. Meanwhile, theories multiplied. Painters, doctors, and even aristocrats were accused. The more time passed, the more the Ripper became not just a man, but a mystery that scholars, scientists, and storytellers couldn't stop chasing. Over time, the Ripper case became a playground for conspiracy and creativity alike. Some claimed that painter Walter Sickert was the killer, hiding dark messages within his art. Others spoke of grand cover-ups involving the British government, even whispers of the royal family. None were ever proven, yet each theory kept the legend alive. In many ways, Jack the Ripper became the birth of the modern serial killer archetype. His crimes were ritualistic, driven not by greed, but by something darker and psychological. Jack the Ripper transcended crime itself, becoming a cultural phenomenon seen in novels, plays, films, and television dramas. History may have buried his body, but his image lives forever, a ghost in the fog. In London today, the Ripper's legacy is etched into the city itself. Ripper tours remain among the city's most popular attractions, tracing the very paths where his victims once walked. Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, Mary Jane Kelly. Their names echo through time. Museums, books, and exhibitions keep the mystery alive, ensuring it never fades into obscurity. Yet beyond fascination lies a deeper truth, a mirror reflecting society's own failures. The Ripper's victims were poor working-class women, ignored in life, remembered only in death. Their tragedy exposed the hypocrisy of Victorian England, a society that neglected its most vulnerable. Their deaths shone a cruel light on an empire blinded by pride, revealing poverty, inequality, and moral decay beneath its grandeur. Even in the 21st century, Jack the Ripper continues to haunt historians and criminologists. Was he a sadist, killing for pleasure? A medical man experimenting with anatomy? Or something greater? Society's darkest fears made flesh. Every answer seems possible, yet none can be proven. Perhaps that uncertainty is why the Ripper endures. A puzzle without a solution, a nightmare without awakening. Even in an age of DNA and digital forensics, his case stands as a reminder of how limited our knowledge truly is. For every claim of discovery, another theory rises to dispute it. Jack the Ripper remains what he always was, a ghost in the fog, faceless and nameless, vanishing after each kill. He may have stopped killing in 1888, but in truth, Jack the Ripper has never stopped haunting us.